Tascitele l'obtruzzo, tascitele genla kusudevo imbella.
So testele Cindy la ani lobruk so yang testele nga debo yi ani Cindy ya debo yi
La yin genla tujice devo de kyayin teri. Tene l'obtruzzo ani kiraya?
nga yang debo yi
La genla tene terin l'obtruzzo. This is your first lesson of your week number 6. We are getting close to completion, 2 more weeks of class after this. So now we're getting really into a lot of structures that are getting into learning how to use certain types of connectors in the middle of a sentence. So today's lesson, so our first lesson of week number 6, is on lesson 13, which covers 2 different sets of materials. The first set is going to be the conditional. So the conditional in Tibetan is a particle which is na that you have already encountered in some sentences that Yenla and I provided for you in the context of the seeking volunteering auxiliaries, where we said things like, oh, if you have a lot of work, don't worry, I'll go and I will buy the vegetables to cook dinner. This kind of sentences that we were giving you. So you are a little bit familiar with this. But now in today's lesson, we are going to teach you how to conjugate the verbs in the conditional. And there are present conditional, past tense conditional, future conditional, past unreal conditional, and present perfect conditional. So there's still a few things that regard tenses. We have given you plenty of examples. So in this lecture, you will not have an assignment because this lesson will require a little bit of time for you to get familiarized with the ways that we are translating it in English so that you can correlate it to understanding the different tenses in the conditional. So we are going to go through the handout with you, and in class we will do more practice. So I'm going to show you my screen. So this form with the particle na, which means if, and it is used to the verb. It is added to the verb or the verbal auxiliary in what we call la gela.
Oh, digitu, tanda tongetu.
In what we call the subordinate clause. One thing that is really essential with na, the connector na, the conditional connector na, is that it follows only the dak form of the verb. So if it's an essential statement, then it's yina. If it's an existential statement, then it's yuna. If it is conjugating it, also we would only use yin and yu with dak and shen. So you do not really hear people saying yorena or duna or jena. That is something that we're going to see with the next set of connectors that we will learn in this lesson, in the next coming lessons. If it's in the middle of a sentence and you have some kind of a verbal connection there, then the verb will always be in the dak form. Okay, we will study that in when we see tsang, the connector tsang, which means because, nayang, even though, and other things that are coming up in the next lessons 14 and so on. Sometimes the word kesi, this word kesi, is added at the end of the sentence. It doesn't really make any difference in terms of meaning. It is a very nice prompt that the conditional is going to be used, that it's going to be an if kind of a sentence. Tibetan has present, past, and future conditional statements, but the present conditional is by far the most common. So we will see examples in just a minute. And then the essential and existential conditionals are used with essential and existential verbs respectively, and they're also extremely common. A little bit of my introduction. Let's see, practically speaking. The present conditional is when a situation has not occurred, but there's a possibility or hypothetical situation. Therefore, you are kind of preparing for what could arise in case that situation happened. This is far the most common form of the conditional statement, and it can use sometimes to even express past or even conditional statements, but that's just something you'll get used to as we practice more and more. There is some kind of a formula just to help you memorize things, and it's usually, so you could use KC at the beginning of the sentence or not, that is optional. A verb in the past tense inflection, like the verbal root in the past, followed by na immediately, and then the rest of your clause followed by a future verb and future auxiliary, is really the grammatical form that is used by speakers of Central Tibetan dialect, especially Lhasa. This means that this is a more purist way of speaking, but of course there has been a little bit of an evolution and also different ways of speaking nowadays, and not everybody will follow exactly this grammatical structure. Sometimes the verb will be in the present tense inflection, not in the past, and that'll still be okay. So you just have to be very flexible with this lesson because you will hear different things, not just this formula. But we're providing you with this as a beginning so that you can really start getting familiarized with the topic, okay? Then another form is what I've written here, verb in the present plus giyona, usually, which is conjugating in the present tense, with the rest of clause and future verb and future. And this is what we're calling a present conditional. So let's look at some pejö. So Genla, could you please read the pejö for us?
라서 this 체르땅 투기두게 this
Yeah. Yinda. Tongiduge.
라서 따빼야부터 라서 캐시 콩 드나 nga양 도기인 오케이 양자 캐시 콩 드나 nga양 도기인 라서 되네 캐시 어디 인지게라 if he goes I will go also okay if he went I would also go reverse sindiala
Lare. So there are two translations because this could be understood in two different tenses in English. If he goes, I will also go will be a very, very natural way of understanding this present conditional because it's also the present conditional in English. But the is a bit difficult for non-native English speakers because the tenses in the conditional in English are also a little bit complex. And if you're not familiar with them, it might be adding a little bit of stress. Now, what we're trying to teach you is the conditional in Tibetan, not so much in English. But we have to do it through the medium of English so that you know what we are trying to convey. So I'm providing here both for those of you who can really understand the difference between these two sentences and know that the Tibetan will render both of these tenses. But if English is not your native language and this doesn't mean a lot to you, don't worry so much. Just try and understand that this is a hypothetical statement that could be close to reality. So if he goes to the empowerment tomorrow, then I will also go with him. So this is a possibility that something could happen. Okay, so just keep that in mind.
So here in this sentence as above there's the formula is a verb in past. So based on that, Cynthia, this tiktup tangbodi or here, let's say, kasi kong china, right? Ngayang dokin. That is also the Lhasa people use. Kasi kong china ngayang dokin. That is exact what you see in the formula, okay? And then kasi kong dokin na ngayang dokin. Okay. If he goes, I will also go. If he wants, I would also go. Okay. Kong mapet na nga dogimin. Okay. Laso tine ya tangro na. Yeah, here is if he doesn't go, I'm not going. Okay. Otherwise, Pip can be come and go, also can be arrive. So here is more like from the context it tells if she doesn't go, I'm not going. So
it takes a little time to show in the video. Gonda, is it okay now?
Tigitu. Kerang kalasona ngasakijin. Yang na Kerangi kalasona ngasakijin. Okay, if you make food, I will eat it. Okay, so it's both can be used. Okay, so kerangi kala suena, which is in the past form, that is the Hausa people use a lot. Okay, kerang kala sona ngasagin, that is grammatically is this is more correct, and then based on the Hausa dialect, and then kerangi kala suena ngasagi. Laso tene kerang kala soki yona ngasagi. Okay, this is a present moment. Okay, present tense. Kerang kala soki yona ngasagi. If you are making food, maybe right now, and then I will eat it. Okay, I will eat. Suppose I'm calling to my friend, and then I say, oh, kerang kala soki yona ngasagi. Okay, so we can also say kerang kala soki yona ngasakang la kala sakime. If you are making food at home, kerang nang la kala soki yona. If you are preparing food at home, ngasakang la kala sakim. I will not eat at restaurant. Okay. Dene kerang ki namdu tsongna nga nyokijin. Laso. If you sell your airplane, I will buy it.
And so if you were to sell your airplane, I would buy it too. That you could also say that somehow. Lasso. So all that you can keep in mind is that these sentences will end with a future tense auxiliary. That's probably a really good goal for you to understand this present tense conditional. Now we also have what we call strange to you. We're following the book, the terminology in the book. Past conditional or past unreal. I have to say something about this so that you can understand what we are referring to and what the book refers to as well. This is one of the most common.
Cinderella, this guru nang. Oh, that's Cinderella. That's Cinderella. Yeah.
This is the most common conditional that are used, but it's important to understand that it's the most hypothetical one. What does that mean? That it's something that you are expressing really from maybe a hope or maybe some kind of a mental fabrication of something that you are stating a hypothetical idea of something that could have happened. If something had happened, then this and this and this would have been the logical results of that. So this past unreal is really something that can be used a lot in conversations, but when you're talking about something that might be a little far-fetched, I don't know if you all understand this word far-fetched, which means very unlikely, that maybe it would never ever happen in a million years. So kind of a little bit exaggerated too, and it may be telling a story or things like that. And therefore, for that, there are two formulas that you can just memorize, because otherwise it'll be a little hard if you try to guess. It's a KC, always optional, verb in the past tense, inflection, followed by yuna or payina. Okay, they are interchangeable. And then your verb must be in the past and must be followed by yure. This is important that you don't add any pas, you don't add any gis, you don't add any yaks, nothing, but that it stays this way. And my advice to you all is to just memorize this formula and accept it as it is and not try and really ask too much as why, how, because it's going to become a little tricky if you try to do that, because we don't have all of the tools yet to fully understand this kind of grammar yet. And we're just trying to get you to speak in these very common waves of speech. So for now, I think it's the fastest and the safest way to go with this particular topic that can be really kind of a little bit complex at times. Okay, so that is just how I would recommend to just memorize these formulas and practice them as much as possible. So then, okay, Genla, let's read some sentences so the students know what we are trying to mean by this, please.
kasi kongki chusing song yona nge nye yore. Okay.
So how do we translate that? If he had sold his boat, I would have bought it. So this really means he did not sell it, I did not buy it, but it was maybe my wishful thinking. Oh, if he actually had sold it, I would have definitely bought it. That was my intention, that was my wish, that was my desire. So this is something that really didn't happen and that was not even close to happening. And it's really this hypothetical idea. All right. So this is how it can be translated into English for those of you who are a little bit more familiar with the English grammar, just to have a sense of what this actually tries to express. Lasso.
Cindyala tendati trusing boat tang ship ki keba khari yore injikela ship tang boat.
Yeah, good question, Gena. That's right. So usually a ship is bigger than a boat. A ship. Yeah. So here we
say ship like Eurosi.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Boat is a lot more common sometimes in the spoken language, but there is a difference between ship and boat. Yes. Right. So you're right.
Titanic demo yora di nangla di ship lewa trusing di boat marwa.
Exactly, Genla. Boat is when in the Genla is saying the trusing is what, like in the Titanic, is a ship, right? So it's like the boat is when they actually are trying to rescue themselves and save their life, and those are the boats that they take, the smaller ones.
Oh, las. Dilangan di chungjung tenzala chujung la kire chuchungchung rewa chuchungchung.
Exactly. Boats are called chuchung in Tibetan. Small re.
Laso. Tene kongki lakir songba yina nge nye yore. Okay. Kongki lakir songba yina nge nye yore.
So again, very hypothetical statement. This is a silly sentence, but it's to practice a little bit of the vocab as well. If he had sold his passport, then I would have bought it. So maybe, yeah, just very hypothetical. Yeah.
Okay. That's alright. This re can sabotua. Kera chi na kaya chi yore.
So this is a lot more common. So if you had gone, we don't know where, the sentence doesn't tell us, but within the context of a conversation, if you had gone, I would have also gone. So maybe, like I said earlier in the example, oh, if you had gone to receive that teaching or that empowerment, I would have gone with you. Or if you had gone hiking last weekend, I would have gone with you, like that. So this can really be used a lot in daily conversation. I can say to Genla, oh, Genla, if you had had a meeting with the students, I would have been there too. I would have liked to also spend some time with our students, like that. Okay? So this is very, very useful, the past conditional or past unreal. So the very as well as you can. We really recommend you. The next one is the present perfect conditional. Maybe this is so to memorize it that much. It is used, definitely. That's why we're giving it to you. But if I have to choose and to tell you to really focus on something, I would tell you to focus on the two previous ones and on some topics that are coming next. Okay. So the present perfect conditional is just the verb is in the past followed by yuna, and then the verb usually is in the future followed by gire. So again, it's just a formula to memorize. And so here are some examples.
Laso this ya tango to jisina kale drogi yosaro.
La.
Tanda tongi mende.
Oh, sorry, I already tang sarson.
Oh, laso tashine lepson.
Laso.
Kongki kalate seyuna sani nagire. Laso kongki kalate seyuna 산이 나기를.
Yes, so if he has eaten that food, then he will get sick tomorrow. So even in the English, you see what the Tibetan is doing is that you have a verb in the present perfect, and then you have a verb in the future, because the present perfect is very close to the present moment, and then the future will just be the consequence of that action. So again, we are still in hypothetical statement, but in a statement that is a little bit closer to what could happen in reality. So that is why this one's a little complex, because we have the two different, very, very different conjugations, okay? That could be very common in daily conversation.
그래서 계란기 칼라스요나 나사기인. 계란기 칼라스요나 나사기인.
So if you have made food, then I will eat it. This is also a very common sentence. If you come home and Amala has cooked lunch for you and you say, oh, if you have just made food, then I will of course eat it. Maybe you already had the lunch with a friend, but Amala cooked for you and her momos are delicious, so you are going to eat again, right? Maybe like that. Oh yeah. So then we have the future conditional as well, and it expresses a future possibility. So again, this can also be quite common, and therefore this one is easy, a lot easier, I will say, because everything will be in the future. And you can either conjugate your verb in the future before now with giyin or yakyin, because both are the auxiliaries that we know for the future tense. And notice that we can only use the dak forms, sorry, as we have been saying it. That's why you see yin and not je. And the end is also with future verb and future auxiliary. So this one is very simple, very easy. So I don't have a lot to say about it. So Genla will just give us the sentences, please.
그래서 개시 계란기 잘라 총기이나 안녕기인.
So if you're going to sell your things, then I will buy them. So again, very close to reality. If you're planning on selling your things tomorrow, I will come and I will buy them, kind of a thing. And the same expressed with yak to convey the gerund more clearly. The gerund means this ing really, then an action that will happen very soon in the close to the present moment. And that is what we have written here.
그래서 개시 계란기 잘라 총야이나 안녕기인.
So this could be translated as, for instance, yeah, if you will be selling your things, I will buy them. So it can be this translation that I've given you earlier here. I will put it again here so that you know what it means. Okay, the next one is very common as well, is the essential and existential statements. And these ones are used a lot in conversation. And this just, you will see that they're easier because you just have yin and yu. Just means if something were the case, or if someone had something, or we're located somewhere. So we learned in lesson 2 already a while back. So these are more, how to say, logical maybe, or a little bit more familiar to you. So Gemma is going to read some sentences for you.
개싱에 빨라 타바이나 나제요 말에.
If my father were or had been a monk, I wouldn't be born. Okay, so it's just silly, but it's so you know how this yin works.
콩 MG이나 내가 망볼라 때요래.
So if he was or he were a doctor, or he or she would see a lot of patients. So the verb, that here is the verb to look at. But when you go to the doctor, when you say that the doctor sees patients, in English we say to see, we don't say to look at patients. It means to treat patients and to have consultation with patients. In Tibetan, this is the verb that is used, just so that you, in case you were wondering. 라서.
가시 콩 차이나 푸르투기요래.
I love this sentence. Now we have the tup that we have learned in lesson 12, previous lesson, And then very hypothetical. So if he or she were a bird, he or she would be able to fly. So this is a little bit of a past unreal kind of a sentence with just an existential kind of a statement prior to that. Lasso, ini.
Lasso, ini. ngoma cherang la ngu mangbo yona kareche yore.
So if you had a lot of money before, what would you have done? Or had you earned a lot of money in the past, what would you have done with it? Okay, so this is another statement where you could see the yona is what the existential verbs we've learned in lesson 2 are. It's the verb to have can be used in this way as well. Lasso.
So, kesi cherang la tuju tongba yona nye nang la temo takasho.
So if you have some free time, come to my place to watch a movie, right? So here you know all the structures. You have the imperative, you have the kar with the motion verb indicating the purpose for the motion, the temota, and then the yona here again implying the verb to have if you have time. And then the last sentence of this part.
Kasi michangma semba sangbo yona. So
if everyone were kind-hearted, all the people in the world would be happy. I love this sentence. I think it's very true. Okay, so yona again, existential. If with why? Because we have an adjective, sempa sampo. So we say kong sempa sampo yore, right? So that's why we say yona here. And then yongire is here you're stating something that would happen or will happen in the future if everyone had a kind heart. Lasso. So the last topic of this lesson is very, very, very important. And you might have heard us say it many times in class already. So now you will be able to also practice it yourself. Polite inquiries and statements. When you na digidepe or na digiduge, and then the answer is na digide or na digidu, it means, is it all right if something? And the answer is yes, it is all right if something happens. So is it okay if I open the door? Yes, it's okay, you just open it. Or may I? It can also be translated like that. So here are some very day-to-day examples as well.
Lasso. Nga yongna digirepe.
So is it okay if I come or if I come in? May I come or come in? Maybe I'll add the in brackets so it's a little easier to understand. Okay. Lasso. Next one, also very common. You could ask us that if we were in the setting of a class in campus.
Nga tiring mayongna digirepe. Nga tiring mayongna digirepe.
So is it okay if I don't come today? Will it be all right if I don't come? So let's say you have a prior engagement and you cannot make it to our appointment or our class, then you would say it this way. So it's a polite request in a way. Peapo. And then last one.
Kerang de shuna tigre. Or kerang dir shuna tigre. Okay. Here is de is more common. Kerang de shuna tigre.
So it means if you sit here, it is okay. Basically, you may sit here. You can also translate it like this. You may sit here. So maybe if you're walking into a room and there are a lot of tables and chairs and some are open, but you don't know whether somebody is already claiming that seat or not, then somebody will say, oh, it's okay. No, you may sit here. So they're giving you permission. It's possible, it is viable, and it is also permissible. So the dik also means something is permissible, something can happen. It's super common in this lesson. So this one, please remember really well, all the time. Now, you'll probably remember when you hear us again, and I say it all the time. This handout really well, and any questions you might have, of course, please bring to our class, And we look forward to seeing you in our class tomorrow. So tujichegenla ani sanjinjeyo.
Laso tujiche ani sanyi jeyo lokutso Cynthia la.
Laso shuagenla.
Laso shugo.